Now that you came at the right time, now I'm actually going to get started with what I was going to begin the stream with. 2 hours in, so that's lovely. So we've got OverSimplified. I'm going to be doing the last, I think, unless I've missed one, the last OverSimplified video that I've not checked out yet. I'm kind of excited about it, though I'm not sure exactly how much commentary I'm going to be able to provide on this one because it is clearly Asian history, which is so far out of my comfort zone, I don't even know what to do with it half of the time. But it's always interesting, and I said this earlier today, every time I'm learning about Asian history, it is fun for me because I am always learning something new. Sometimes I'll learn about American history and it's like, oh, I knew most of that. Maybe I learned one or two things, but this is like a whole new world of stuff to me. So there's of a lot of room for me to learn and get better with this stuff. So I'm gonna pull chat off the screen for this one just so I can see the whole thing just fine and everybody else can see as much of it as possible just fine. And if everybody's all set, let's get this started. Welcome Laura Gonzalez to the stream. It's good to have you.
The brand new strategy game from the multi-award winning Total War series. Support my channel by using the link in the description down below to buy the game on Steam. Also,
if anybody has any Total War recommendations, I know there's like several Total War games and some of you have asked me to check them out. I don't know what's good and what's not. So if anybody who has played that stuff and thinks it would be worth it, let me know where I'm supposed to start because I have no idea.
So, new merch available now in the store, including a mystery new character pin. I wonder who it could be. Ancient China. The sun is shining. The birds are singing. The children are playing in the village square. What a wonderful time to be alive. Hey, the Yellow River flooded again and destroyed all your crops. And also we're being raided by nomadic tribesmen. And also, this period of Chinese history may be entirely mythical, meaning you may not even exist. Well, that would certainly explain the laser eyes.
That is so fascinating, with like Chinese history being so old. Like American history has its own mythology. And that's weird to think of, with like how old China is, like not as like its modern political entity, but when you go back through its history, there's so much of it that is a bit vague or like hard to hold the material accountable to the sources and the facts and all that. So that must be a fascinating subject to discover. Like I'm still trying to figure out every type of teeth George Washington had. I know 3 off the top of my head.
Chinese civilization began around the year 2000 BC when the possibly mythical Xia dynasty was formed. Throughout China's history, dynasties would usually rise up with a powerful leader who worked for the good of the people. But over time, the leaders would become more corrupt and self-serving. Someone would inevitably build a lake of alcohol, and the angry populace would overthrow them, giving way for a new dynasty to rise. Following this pattern, the Xia dynasty was replaced by the Shang, who liked bronze and writing, but then the leaders got corrupt, and were replaced by the Zhou, who liked iron and philosophy. But that one sort of just fell apart, and was replaced by the Qin, who liked building walls and people made out of rock. But they were pretty tyrannical from the start, and were quickly replaced by the Han, who liked creating new trade routes and getting in touch with their emotions. In line with this pattern, the Han dynasty came about under the strong and popular leadership of Emperor Gaozu. The dynasty remained firmly in place for over 4 centuries and was considered a golden age in Chinese history, developing new forms of art, political thinking, technology. Oh, looks like all the leaders got corrupt. See, probably the biggest problem in ancient China's political system that allowed so much corruption to come out.
You know what? Despite how long this video actually is, it does feel like it actually fits the name of Oversimplified just a little bit better than a lot of the other stuff that he's done, because as he goes on, he gets more in depth and stuff like that. And of course, stuff gets left out in any historical narrative, but I think he's done a better and better job the longer he goes along. But with how fast paced this is, we're actually starting to get into like, oh, this has to be like oversimplified to a degree. This actually, like some of the stuff he's done, like I'm actually astounded that he has the reputation of being oversimplified. It's mostly because of the name, but like a lot of his material actually goes into decent depth. Not the early videos, not those, but like the later stuff.
About all the time was a little something called court culture. Let me explain. Imagine for me, if you will, that you are the son of the Chinese emperor. Hooray! Now, apart from how weird it is that you have a ton of stepmoms and many of them would like to kill you, and also all of your friends are middle-aged dudes with no dongs, life's pretty alright. One day, your father says, "Son,
I know about the eunuchs, that they were big in Chinese culture and they would cut their things off. So, like, this is actually something I'm prepared for.
Our relationship hasn't been the best, and I've never said this before, but I just want to let you know that I love you." Oh no, I'm having a heart attack! Look at you. Now you're the emperor. I'm so proud of you. But wait, you are but a child and have no idea how to rule over a massive empire. Fret not, because just about everyone in your court wants to help you out with that. Hey man, remember me? I'm your mom's bro. Anyway, I heard you needed someone to rule over China for you. I mean, to help you rule China. So hey, here's a popsicle. I hope we can get along. No way, man. We've been your friends and your personal caretakers your whole life. And even though we may have no dongs, I think you should give us all the power to rule China. I mean, help you rule China. So who will you be influenced by? Your scheming uncle or your loyal eunuchs? And towards the end of the Han Dynasty, a string of child emperors allowed more and more power to fall into the hands of the eunuchs. Oh no, now they're scheming too. They began handing out government jobs for bribes, heavily taxing the poor for their own wealth. And while you're sitting there eating your popsicle, everyone in your court is literally murdering each other to try and consolidate more power and riches for themselves. While all the peasants are outside like, hey, did you guys know there's been a drought out here for 2 years? Guys? Obviously the people weren't too happy that while they were struggling to survive, they were also being heavily taxed so that the eunuch faction could all have rockin' mansions, complete with swimming pools and Alexas. So finally, when a self-proclaimed Taoist wizard came along and was like, you know whose fault it is that we're all out here starving? It's the emperor and his posse. They've lost their mandate from heaven, and the imperial family must be destroyed with an—
You know, some things just don't change. And I love when I get to follow something that's not in an area that I study that's so foreign to me, and like it's like the formula of revolution like doesn't really know borders all that well. It doesn't really know culture. It's pretty consistent across the board, despite whether this is all the way over in Asia or Europe. Like it's always so similar.
an unrelenting, furious wrath. Also, check this out. Huh? Can you tell what it is yet? Ta-da! It's a little kitty cat. Look at her little ears. The people loved his political philosophy. He promised them land reforms, and his followers grew in number. They began arming themselves and wearing yellow turbans. And they also developed a really catchy slogan. In the year 184, the Yellow Turban Rebellion broke out across China, with millions rising up against the Han Dynasty. And the imperial government in the capital city freaked out. With all their internal bickering, they were completely unprepared and unable to deal with such a huge rebellion. So they were forced to call on independent warlords from across the empire to help them deal with this situation. Some big names took part in the fighting. I'm talking the likes of the great Cao Cao, the tyrannical Dongjo, Liu Bei, Sun Jian, and many other Chinese names I'm definitely not pronouncing.
Bear with me a little bit here because they're throwing a lot of names at me, and usually when I watch these things, I at least know a couple of the people that get mentioned. I don't know any of these people, so bear with me if I mix them up, if I end up commenting on them.
Correct.
It's a lot of names.
Crushed the rebellion in their own respective regions, and with casualties in the millions, the Han Dynasty breathed a huge sigh of relief. But what they didn't realize is that by relying on all the warlords and their armies, they had essentially diminished their own central control over the empire. And many of the warlords now held the power to act almost completely independently and rule over their own local regions themselves. Back in the capital, the emperor and his son were having a
decentralized.
Listen, I know we've had our ups and downs, and I spend all of my time with your many smoking hot stepmoms instead of you. But what say you and I finally go on a little fishing trip together this weekend? Oh no, I'm having a stroke!
Yeah.
And yet another child emperor was on the throne.
I felt that.
This time, however, instead of the eunuch faction gaining even more power, this child emperor's uncle became his regent, who also just so happened to be the head of the imperial army, He Jin. Man, I hate those sneaky, lying, cheating eunuchs. Hey Warlord Yuan Shao, what should we do? Kill them all. Right on. You can't kill the eunuchs. They're a vital
Cool.
part of this empire's governance. And also, they paid me a lot of money to say that about them. Ah, come on! No! So He Jin and Yuan Shao decided the empress may need more convincing. And so they called in an infamous, feared, tyrannical, overweight warlord from the northwest to help convince her. That man was Dongjo.
Yeah.
And he set out for the capital city with his army.
I'm only excited because he has a beard. That's the only thing there. I want to see what this guy looks like, because this depiction of him looks like I can't imagine. Dong. I mean, I'm sure there's got to be a painting of him somewhere. Oh. Okay, that's from the Total War game. But that's not what I'm looking for. They've got this picture that looks like so many of the other pictures I've seen from the period, but this guy's a little bit more chunky than the rest. But yeah, every depiction I see seems to have like a pretty boss-ass beard, but most of them are from Total War. Okay, that's always exciting. I'm fond of beards. They get me on your side.
Hey guys, I heard a rumor that He Jin was planning on killing us. Then why don't we kill him first? And so it was. They lured him to the palace with a forged letter from his sister, and when he got there, they lobbed off his head.
But what about Dongjo?
Kill them all. Imperial forces stormed the palace, and the eunuchs were all massacred. The peasants, who were still suffering from drought and starvation, saw what was going on and began to riot. The emperor and his brother were forced to flee the city, which was now in flames.
Who's that in the background?
Is
that
nasty, tyrannical?
Was that Hitler's dad or Mussolini's dad or somebody's dad? That is in the background. I know that's a reference from another one. I just can't remember which one that
Suffering
is.
from drought and starvation,
Stalin's
saw
dad?
what was going on and began to riot. The
One
emperor
of their
and his
dads.
brother were forced to flee the city, which was now in flames. And the feared, nasty, tyrannical, bloated Dongjo had just arrived. He found the emperor and his brother wandering the hills outside of the city and was understandably confused. So he scooped up the emperor, went to the capital and was like, "Hey guys, what's up? I see the capital is on fire. Also, I'm here with my army and I have the emperor with me." Wait a minute, the capital is on fire, I'm here with my army, and I have the emperor. Screw you guys, I'm in charge. So now Dongjo ruled over the Han Dynasty as the
Hitler's
emperor's
dad,
regent.
that's who it was.
His first act was to say to the emperor, "Hey
Thanks,
man,
guys.
no hard feelings, but I like your little brother better, so I'm actually making him emperor instead of you, so you're free to go do whatever you want." Actually,
I was about to say, if you let him do what he wants, he's going to grow up, and he's going to probably realize, oh wait, I was supposed to be emperor, and then he's suddenly a threat because he has like a legitimate claim to the throne. So,
yeah, that feels better. Dongjo ruled with an iron fist, and he did whatever the flip he wanted. He made absolute decisions himself, showing no regard for the monarchy. He had his opponents or those who disagreed with him killed. He broke protocol, doing things like keeping his sword when approaching the emperor, wearing shoes in the court, sleeping in the emperor's bed, and worst of all, he would walk in the presence of the emperor. You were meant to trot. The other warlords around the empire hated him.
That's
and
so
they
silly.
said, "Something needs to be done about this guy. What say we form a coalition and oust him?" And it was agreed. Warlords from across China, their armies amounting to 100,000 men, allied together against the tyranny of Dongjo. Yuan Shao's coalition consisted of some of the nation's most capable leaders, including his half-brother Yuan Shu, the great Cao Cao, and Sun Jian. But
Cao
Dongjo
Cao.
had an ace up his sleeve. His protege and adopted son, one of the most skilled and feared warriors in all of China. It's Lu Bu. This guy was a
Lu
beast
Bu.
of a man. He never lost a duel, and no other warlord dared challenge him to one. He was also famous for betraying just about every warlord he ever fought for, something that Dongjo didn't seem too concerned about. The coalition attacked Dongjo in Luoyang, and in particular, Sun Jian's forces inflicted a heavy
I mean, as long as he keeps him sufficiently happy, you know, like, if he stops making him happy, then, you know, he might have something to worry about. But if he has enough to give Lu Bu, then, I don't know. But Lu Bu also has the world to gain. So I guess there's no amount of satisfaction you could give somebody somebody who's ambitious that could keep them from wanting everything, all of China, which, you know, Dongjo seems to have the closest claim to Yeah.
Defeat against him, and he was forced to flee to the city of Chang'an. After this initial success, however, the war entered into a stalemate. The warlords in the coalition realized it was going nowhere, and also they all secretly hated each other. So they all went home. Dongjo was safe. Until... Legend has it that a government official in Chang'an had a daughter who was hot. Super hot. He invited Lu Bu to his home, and promised Lu Bu that someday he could marry his daughter. Then, he invited Dongjo to his house and did the exact same thing. Dongjo was so smitten that he insisted on taking her as his concubine immediately. And when Lu Bu heard the news, he was pretty unhappy. Hey man, aren't you worried that you stole Lu Bu's girl and betrayal is like his personal hobby? Lu Bu? Betray me? No way, man. Never gonna happen.
Right off. Yeah, there we go.
Ah, crap. Lu Bu, along with other government officials, assassinated the tyrannical Dongjo. Then they left his body burning in the streets. Some sources say he was so fat and oily, he kept on burning for days. Nice. So with Dongjo dead, and the power of the Han government essentially decimated, China was left with a huge power gap, and a ton of warlords who all slept soundly at night dreaming of being the one to fill it. Here we enter into a crazy and chaotic period of civil war all across China, with so many people, so much betrayal, so much intricacy, it makes Game of Thrones look like a Dr. Seuss publication. But just to give you an idea of how crazy and chaotic it was, see if you're able to keep up with this. Are you ready? Here we go. Here's a rough map of the warlords throughout the Han Dynasty at the time. Half-brothers Yuan Shao and Yuan Shu were both in a power struggle for who would become the figurehead of their family. Yuan Shu made alliances with warlords in the north, along with Sun Jian, the guy who defeated Dongjo. Yuan Shao also made alliances with Liu Biao in the south and Cao Cao, who was an amazing strategist and general.
Dude, this is too many names. Like, I'm glad that their designs are so, like, intricate. And they've got so much going for them, because, like, I'm not going to be able to keep up with this otherwise.
These warlords began fighting each other. Cao Cao began building his own strength by subjugating nearby remnants of the Yellow Turban Rebellion into his own forces. Down south, things weren't going so well for Sun Jian, as he was killed in an ambush. So Sun Ce took over. Then Yuan Shu got pushed back to the river Huai,
no wordplay. I'm already lost
to
enough.
Take the territory of warlord Lu Kang. Then Sun Ce went off to capture territories in the east for himself. Cao Cao's family lived in this province over here. One day, they were murdered. Oh no, Cao Cao held the province's governor responsible, and so he launched a cruel invasion in which he pillaged cities and murdered over 100,000 civilians. The governor sent out a call for help, and a very popular, likable warlord by the name of Liu Bei came to his aid. However, while Cao Cao was away fighting, a rebellion was staged against him in his home province, by none other than, it's Lu Bu. Cao Cao rushed home and defeated Lu Bu, who fled to the east, which by now had been inherited by Liu Bei. Then Lu Bu, surprise surprise, launched a rebellion against Liu Bei, who fled to Cao Cao. Together, Cao Cao and Liu Bei would go on to invade and defeat Lu Bu. Lu Bu offered to join Cao Cao, and Cao Cao considered the offer. But his advisors were like, no way man, this guy's betrayed literally everyone he ever worked for. And so boo-hoo, Lu Bu was executed. Next, Cao Cao convinced the emperor to move in with him.
This is so fast. Everybody who feels important is just disappearing on me. Now all the people I, like, was kind of interested in are, like, gone, and now I have to get interested in other guys. Like, I wanted a big beard guy to win, and I've already lost his name. It's already gone. And then I was kind of, in a morbid sense, rooting for Lu Bu.
Now he's in control of the Han government, something that made his allies very jealous. Yuan Shu, out of nowhere, decides to declare himself emperor of the new Zhong dynasty. Nobody liked that. His allies cut ties with him. The imperial government ordered everyone to kill him. He tried to flee to his brother Yuan Shao, but died of illness on the way. Sun Ce took over his territory, and then got assassinated. So his brother, Sun Chen, took over. Liu Bei turned on Cao Cao, but got obliterated, and was forced to flee south. Yuan Shao finally defeated the warlord to his north, and could now focus south. He declared war on his ally Cao Cao, but was defeated at the Battle of Guandu. Cao Cao has now united the north, and he turned his attention to the south. In particular, Liu Biao's province was becoming a powerful threat, so Cao Cao attacked him. Liu Bei was now fighting for Liu Biao, and he held Cao Cao off for a while. But then Liu Biao died and his son took over, and immediately surrendered to Cao Cao. Liu Bei was horrified, and he fled southward to try and maintain control of the province. Cao Cao was on an absolute roll, and it looked like he would be the one to take control of China. He began making plans to attack both Liu Bei and Sun Qian, and the two of them, seeing where things were headed, met up and decided to form an alliance. Now I know that was a lot to take in, but all you really need to know at this point is that this guy is on his way to taking over everything, and he's about to throw his full weight at the southern warlords. These two have one chance, one battle, to prevent him from invading the south. And that battle was the famous Battle of Red Cliffs. To take the south, Cao Cao would need to control and cross the mighty...
Okay, so it takes place in Liu Bei's territory. So they're gonna these guys on the right are gonna have to cross over into that. So it's gonna likely be coordinated by the guys on the left. And I'm kind of nervous about like betrayal from the guys who don't really have like the tangible skin in the game. I know that like if Liu Bei falls, then they're next. But honestly, I've seen more short-sighted things in my life.
Yangtze River. He had over 200,000 men to face against Liu Bei and Sun Qian's combined force of 50,000. How would they stand a chance when they were so outnumbered? Legend says most of Sun Qian's advisors pleaded with him to surrender, but then he smashed up a table and they all backed down. Luckily, Cao Cao's forces were ravaged by disease and exhaustion, and his northern soldiers weren't too comfortable on ships. So when Cao Cao sailed down the river and the two sides met for an initial skirmish at Wulin, Cao Cao was unable to inflict a defeat against the allies. Then, one of Sun Qian's men came up with a very sneaky plan. He sent Cao Cao a letter, pretending that he and others wanted to defect to his side, and offered to bring him some of Liu Bei and Sun Qian's finest ships. Little did Cao Cao know, however, that those ships were full of flammable reeds. As they approached his fleet, they were set alight and destroyed his ships in camp. Seeing the situation as hopeless, Cao Cao ordered a difficult retreat through the rain and marshlands, during which more of his men fell to illness and disease. The underdogs had won, and Cao Cao would never again have another chance to take the south. Following that, the three warlords took some time to finish off some smaller competitors in their own regions, and by the year 214, China looked a little bit like this. Cao Cao continued to try to penetrate the southern...
Okay, so 13 minutes in, like the three kingdoms are like fully realized. We are almost at the end, and this is like peak of what the title is promising us. I think they could be more oversimplified than this. This is complicated. I was just saying, like, this really is oversimplifying things, but no, it's still hard to follow.
Regions, but had no success, and even lost the Hanzhong region to Liu Bei in 217. The former allies eventually fell out over who should own this territory here, with Sun Qian coming out on top. In 220, Cao Cao died of a head disease, and was replaced by his son, Cao Pi. Cao Pi convinced the Emperor of Han to abdicate, and then proclaimed himself the Emperor of the new state of Wei. Liu Bei followed suit, declaring himself the true Emperor of Shu Han. And a few years later, Sun Qian joined in the fun, and declared himself Emperor of Wu. And so now you have a number of kingdoms in China. How many? Count them. 1, 2, 3. 3 kingdoms. Except, actually, they weren't kingdoms, they were dynasties. And when the 3 kingdoms finally formed, not a whole lot happened. For the next 3 decades, they continued to engage in combat, but it almost always ended in stalemate, and nobody really got anywhere. So how did it all end? Did Cao Cao's descendants eventually realize his dream of unifying China? Not quite. Instead, the 3 kingdoms became victims of the usual problems that plagued Chinese dynasties. In Wu, Sun Qian's descendant became a tyrant, who was more interested in spending time with his concubines than governing.
And we're back to the beginning already.
A powerful, corrupt, eunuch faction rose up, and by now we all know how that ends. And in Wei, a string of young emperors gave way for a powerful family, the Sima clan.
I know about the eunuchs, but I don't know why the eunuchs. I don't know. Like, I don't know why they're a thing. Like, I know that they do exist and that they are a thing, but I don't know the origins of that. And that bugs me, and I want to know. If anybody knows, let me know.
To take control of the dynasty's government, this Sima clan recognized the weak state Shu and Wu had been reduced to, and so they began making plans. I've just received this letter that says Wei is planning to attack us. Should we make preparations for war? Nah, it's probably nothing to worry about. Let's do absolutely nothing. Sounds good to me. Wei launched a full-scale invasion into Shu, which fell within a year. Then Sima Yan forced the Wei emperor to abdicate, and proclaimed himself emperor of the new Jin dynasty. In the year 279, Jin launched an invasion of Wu, and finally unified China in the year 280. The pattern of rising and falling dynasties, division and reunification would continue in China for centuries to come. Right now you may be asking yourself, but wait a minute, what would have happened if Cao Cao had his way and unified China? Or what if Lu Bu never assassinated Dongjo and he continued to rule over the Han dynasty? What about if one of these smaller warlords had risen to the top? Dang it, what if I want to be a warlord during the downfall of the Han dynasty?
Segue.
Whoa, partner.
Oh,
Calm
man.
down, because now you can. This video was brought...
Okay, I want to actually, like, normally I'm getting in the habit of actually skipping the ads unless they're like a newer ad, but I actually want to see this game.
To you by Total War 3
because it has been recommended
a brand new
to me.
strategy game that combines a gripping turn-based campaign of empire building, statecraft, and conquest
This is not what the
with
actual
stunning
game looks like,
real-time
is it?
battles. Choose from a cast of legendary
cinematics.
warlords and conquer the realm. Unite China under your rule. Forge the next great dynasty and build a legacy that will last through the ages. Recruit heroic characters to aid your cause and dominate your enemies on military, technological, political, and economic fronts. Will you build powerful friendships, form brotherly alliances, and earn the respect of your many foes? Or would you rather commit acts of treachery, inflict heart-wrenching betrayals, and become a master of grand political intrigue? I bet you would. Your legend is yet to be written, but one thing is certain. Glorious conquest awaits. Buy the game on Steam using my link in the description down below. It would also support my channel and my work massively. So thank you.
Yeah, I would love to check out some Total War for the channel. I just don't. Just let this thing pop up. Yeah, I wouldn't know where to start because there's like a million of them. I guess you can start wherever. They have them, like, I think they have one for this. They have one for like the Napoleonic Wars, I'm pretty sure. They have some for the Roman Empire. I believe the Rome one was pretty popular. Yeah. And I'd love to check it out, because those actually do seem like they're pretty interesting games. And I've known some people who are into them. I've just never touched upon that. I'm still getting into like these historical strategy games. Oh, I still haven't played Civ in a while. I should probably continue that. So as far as this video goes, it felt very different from the other oversimplified videos. I guess on one hand, it is covering a different place from where he usually covers. His material is very Western, I suppose, is the best way to describe that. So this is very much out of place among his other stuff, so it would feel very different. But I thought it was really fun. There were so many names, though. I'm not going to be able to keep all that straight going forward. I've already forgotten most of them. I do remember Lubu, though. Lubu seems like an interesting figure, and the chat seemed kind of excited about him. So I'm interested in looking into more of what he has done, because it seems like he had a story that was already going by the time he stepped into this one. He already had that reputation for betrayal, which I would love to see like where that starts. So there must be some material.